Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the absolute wild ride that is India's pharmacy profession. We're going to trace its epic journey from some pretty chaotic, unregulated beginnings all the way to its current status as an absolute global manufacturing powerhouse. And of course, we'll look at the growing pains it's facing right now as it tries to make its next massive leap. If you've ever wondered how the generic medicines sitting in your cabinet trace back to this incredible evolution in Indian education and regulation, well, you are definitely in the right place.
Okay, so let's just jump right in by asking a really foundational question. How exactly did a country go from having basically zero formal pharmaceutical science to suddenly supplying over 50% of the global demand for generic medicines today? I mean, that is a staggering statistic, right? And to really understand it, we need to unpack about a century of intense transformation.
And this transformation is perfectly captured by a really stark contrast. Just think about it. On one side, you've got the 1930s trial and error compounder, someone who's literally just mixing chemicals with zero formal academic training. And on the other side, you have today's highly specialized, patient-focused clinical pharmacist. Closing that gap didn't just happen overnight, and the story of how they pulled it off is absolutely fascinating.
All right, let's start at the beginning with Section 1, the Age of Compounders. To truly grasp this monumental shift, we have to rewind to an era way before any scientific rigor existed in the field, a time when formal pharmacy education in India was practically non-existent. Back in 1811, a Scottish gentleman opened a chemist shop in Kolkata. Now, this might seem like a small event, but it actually marked the early, completely unregulated days of the profession. Back then, medicines were mixed by quote-unquote compounders. These were folks relying entirely on trial and error, with absolutely no standardized degrees or legal restrictions on who could practice. It was, quite literally, the Wild West of medicine dispensing.
Which brings us to Section 2, the regulatory foundation.
Obviously, the chaos of the compounder era couldn't last forever, especially with modern medicine advancing so quickly around the world. The academic spark that changed the game was ignited at Banaras Hindu University, and it was all thanks to Professor M.L. Shroff. But here's the crazy twist. He wasn't even a pharmacist. He was actually an MIT-trained chemist and engineer. When he returned to India, he saw this desperate need for scientific rigor, and he championed the massive shift from a trade of just mixing powders to a dedicated scientific profession.
When you look at the pivotal milestones, the momentum really becomes clear. We have those early 1811 beginnings, sure, but the real progress hits when Shroff introduces pharmaceutical chemistry at BHU in 1932. That directly laid the groundwork for the monumental Pharmacy Act of 1948. That act was the absolute turning point. It finally brought legal order to the chaos, set up minimum educational standards, and led to the creation of the Pharmacy Council of India, or PCI, the very next year in 1949.
Let's move on to Section 3, the Industrial Powerhouse. With strict regulations and educational standards finally locked in, India didn't just catch up to the rest of the world, it rapidly transformed into an absolute industrial powerhouse for pharmaceutical manufacturing. Remember those affordable generic medicines we talked about earlier? This boom is exactly why they exist. Today, the Indian pharmaceutical industry is valued at over 5 lakh crore rupees, and it's growing at an impressive 10 to 12% every single year. They became a dominant global force by focusing heavily on massive-scale manufacturing and quality control.
But to keep that momentum going, India knew it had to evolve. You can't just copy generic drugs forever. You have to develop advanced formulations and conduct original research. So, in 1998, the government established NIPER, the National Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research. Designed as an institute of national importance, its whole purpose was to bridge that crucial gap between academic textbooks and real-world industrial R&D.
And to feed a manufacturing machine of that size, the academic boom had to be just as massive. Look at this data. Between 2012 and 2017 alone, India was sustaining over 800 postgraduate pharmacy institutes, taking in tens of thousands of students every single year. The entire educational system was just hyper-optimized to churn out the qualified technicians and scientists the industry desperately needed.
Which naturally leads us to Section 4, the clinical pharmacy shift.
Now, every massive success usually comes with a blind spot, right? And despite this incredible industrial success on the global stage, the societal recognition of the local retail and hospital pharmacists really lagged behind. People still just saw them as dispensers. But in 1995, the focus finally started pivoting back to direct patient care. This was the year patient-oriented pharmacy practice was truly realized in India, marked by the first master's programs in pharmacy practice at the JSS colleges of pharmacy. It was a huge first step toward treating the pharmacist as a vital part of the clinical healthcare team.
This whole shift toward collaborative clinical care totally changed the trajectory of the profession. Because it wasn't just about making the drug anymore, you know? It was about managing how the patient actually used it. And that changing mindset paved the way for a massive breakthrough in 2008, the introduction of the rigorous, practice-based 6-year Pharm.D degree. But introducing a degree is one thing. Making it work is another. Let's look at Section 5, Pharm.D, the growing pains. Trying to seamlessly integrate a patient-oriented clinical degree into an educational system that has been heavily industry-focused for decades? Yeah, that comes with some undeniable growing pains. Objectively speaking, the Pharm.D program faces severe friction right now. The financial barrier alone is massive, with management seats costing up to 1.5 million INR. Plus, graduates face a really frustrating lack of nationwide clinical recognition. A lot of hospitals still just aren't sure how to utilize them. Add in a serious scarcity of faculty who actually specialize in pharmacy practice, plus poor coordination between colleges and teaching hospitals, it's honestly a perfect storm of implementation challenges.
And then there's the curriculum itself. A major criticism highlighted in the research is that curricula are often just copy-pasted straight from Western models, like the US or UK. The problem is, they aren't being properly synchronized to the unique realities, resources, and limitations of the Indian healthcare setting. You simply can't lift a curriculum from one healthcare system, drop it into another, and expect it to work flawlessly.
So, how do we fix it? That brings us to Section 6, Modernizing for the Future.
Acknowledging these complex challenges is the first step, and the profession is actively modernizing its regulatory framework right now to ensure graduates are actually respected and ready for clinical practice. A game changer here was the 2015 Pharmacy Practice Regulations. This was vital because it finally, officially defined the practice of pharmacy under the law. It explicitly stated that a pharmacist's role includes interpreting medical orders, providing active patient counseling, and delivering pharmaceutical care. Basically, it gave them a massive legal shield protecting their right to be recognized as clinical professionals, not just pill dispensers.
At the same time, regulatory bodies are really stepping up their game. The Pharmacy Council of India is aggressively digitizing its operations. They're implementing robust systems like Aadhaar authentication to completely wipe out fake identities, and they're using QR codes for strict, transparent inspections of pharmacy institutions to ensure educational standards are actually being met on the ground. And to take things even further, the PCI has forged a powerful partnership with the Quality Council of India. Their goal here is profound. They want to shift the assessment of pharmacy colleges away from mere baseline compliance, just ticking boxes on a form, to a true outcomes-based rating system. They want to measure actual excellence and ensure students are graduating with the real-world skills they need to impact patient care.
Well, that brings us to the end of our explainer. We've traced this incredible, century-long journey from completely unregulated compounders relying on trial and error to a multi-billion-dollar global manufacturing powerhouse. Now, the profession stands at another huge precipice, which leaves us with a pretty provocative final question. Can India successfully overcome these current growing pains? Can it adapt its infrastructure, train specialized faculty, and master patient-centric clinical care to pull off its next great transition? History tells us they absolutely have the resilience to do it, but the next decade, that is going to be the true test. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive, and as always, keep learning.